We're not through yet.
7 days a week.
You'll be amazed at what my Eric XL, even at 8.5 pounds, picked up. Call now.
Call us now.
Call us now. Call now, and I'll also send you my Oric compact vacuum absolutely free.
Your credit card ready.
Hey, hello. Hey, can you hear me? Hey, can you hear me? Hello? Hey.
Welcome to Emerging Tech Mastery, a show that demystifies cutting-edge technology like cryptocurrency, the blockchain, metaverse, NFTs, virtual reality, the maker movement, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud, edge, and even fog computing. Strap in as we ride into the fourth industrial revolution. Emerging Tech Mastery provides actionable knowledge, regardless of skill level, from experts in the trenches. We piece together this intel in easy-to-consume media formats, processes, and procedures. See you in the future.
Hey everyone, this is Aaron Mungle with Emerging Tech Mastery. I got a friend here and a person who knows a lot about virtual reality. Their name's Eric Azares. They are a VR expert, and we're going to let them share why. I want to be sensitive about some of their past big brands they've worked with, because as you know, some of these organizations, make you sign all these things. But Eric Azares, thank you for being with us. Dude, thank you for being here. Emerging Tech Mastery. Hey. Thank you.
Thanks, and thank you for hiding my past, my dark past in corporate America. I actually contemplated using a voice changer tonight just to hide my identity.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, I'm
I didn't think it was that serious.
Yes. So, hi, I'm here from an anonymous basement.
I am a VR expert here.
I'm coming from a virtual world.
Thanks for the intro, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me, and yeah, let's just talk virtual reality, because it's, as you know, it's a pretty exciting time to be talking about virtual reality and the metaverse, Web 3.0, Web 4.0, all that stuff, right? All the stuff we hear about in the news. So
appreciate you bringing attention to those terms, because that's one thing on the site we're noticing, oh man, all these new terms. So yeah, you're coming in at the perfect time. So why don't we just start at the top, because we're going to dive in and we're going to probably have tons of digressions and tangents. So I can't wait for that as well. We don't even know about. That's the crazy part. But before we get into that, tell us about your background and how you got to where you are now.
Sure, yeah. Well, my name is Eric, and I have been working in the VR space, or the immersive technology space, for about since 2016. So that's about 6 years. Oh my gosh, time flies.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been working in that space for a while, starting with working with a 360 video project, then to a virtual reality project, and augmented reality, and then on to something called
all the realities.
Yeah, all the realities, real reality, and then something called volumetric video, which is actually taking real reality and turning it digital. So really going from A to B to C to D to W. So,
dude, that's so cool. And if I'm not mistaken, you said volumetric. I mean, there's some serious words here, like you're often called, like, I don't know if 3D scanning is the exact perfect word, but 3D scanning is one example of that type of tool. But how did you even encounter the concept of virtual reality, let alone volumetric technology? And I like what you said there, by the way, immersive technology. That's something we might have to play with more, because that's exactly what it is. And I don't think I'd heard that in a while or at all.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I like saying immersive technology because it's like an umbrella term that encompasses all the XR, VR, AR, MR terms that you hear. But yeah, virtual reality, like my first encounter, I guess technically I was in this is considered virtual reality. I was in an arcade, and there was, you go to an arcade, think it's flashback to like the early '90s, and there are all these arcade cabinets where you play like, I don't know, the Terminator or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's like sometimes there's like a basketball game, NBA Jam, but then I saw this one. And there's also, not only is it stand-up arcade games with the controllers and joysticks, but there's also like simulators. Like you could hop on a bike, or you can do the Afterburner. That's like the jet fighter simulator. And the one thing I saw was this one time was there was like the submarine commander type of game where, if you ever seen like in the movies, there's like a periscope that kind of comes down from the ceiling. You kind of pull it down, then you look through it, then you can see at the surface of the water. And they have that hardware where you can put your head into this, I guess like a headset, right? And then you kind of move that submarine um, uh, periscope around, and you can see like what's on the surface, right? But of course, it's not. You're not really in a submarine. It was a video game, but that was kind of my first like introduction to virtual reality, because in a way that was like immersing myself into this new thing, right? So
Dude,
it
that's
was,
so cool because you just
yeah.
kind of sparked in me. Like, you're right. Like, they have been trying to do so-called VR for a long time. Like, you're on the motorbike, it looks like a motorbike, or here's your little gun and you're shooting zombies. Like, I actually never quite thought of it like that until you said it, and I'm like, you're right. That was kind of like a foreshadowing of much deeper use of like, I mean, those were almost like prototypes in a sense, right? For its
Yeah. I
time.
mean, they're simulators for sure. Like when you're on the you're doing the off road racing thing, right? You're leaning the motorcycle left and right, and then your little digital avatar on the screen is moving left and right, in coordinated with your movements. So yeah, I mean, in a way, it could be a precursor. I mean, I don't want to get bogged down with semantics, whether it's virtual reality or simulator or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, they're definitely related. Now, so that was my own personal introduction into VR. Now, of course, um, as you were actually alluding to, VR, has been in the zeitgeist in the past couple of years, since maybe 2016. There was a kind of a resurgence, and there was a time in the 90s where there were companies experimenting with VR, but the origins of VR actually date back to even the 1950s. Uh, so there was an old patent. This is pretty wild. Now, if you were to Google Sensorama in and you saw a picture, it's pretty neat. Like there was this inventor, he was tinkering, and he tried to make this new form of entertainment. And basically, you would sit down in a chair and you would have your head inside this like cabinet, like as if you're getting like they used to have like old photo booths at the mall where you could take your picture taken and have it printed on a Polaroid. Look kind of like that, right? So just imagine you're sitting inside of a booth, and you would look through and see a screen, and then there would be like a race car, and you're driving around in a race car. And what was wild about this is that they would actually have a fan blowing wind in your face to simulate that you're in a car.
Whoa.
And on
Haptics.
that seat, it would vibrate. So there'd be haptic feedback to make it feel like you're on the bumpy road. And this was in 1950 something. So we're talking a simulator. Like, I'm looking at the picture now. It's like in black and white, and it definitely looks like it's from like Leave It to Beaver or something.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, so
It's like they were joking, but it's like, no, that's really how it looks. Like,
yeah. And so many people consider that the first virtual reality device. Yeah, so that was one of the origins of virtual reality. And now, then, kind of flash forward to like the 60s and 70s, the government and military have played around with combat simulators using virtual reality. NASA trained their astronauts, I think in the 70s or early 80s, using virtual reality. So what they would do is they would have a headset Well, they would actually, if I'm not mistaken, they took like an old motorcycle helmet, they repurposed it, and then put a screen on the front of it, right? So because the way virtual reality works is that you have a head mounted display, they call it. So basically, you strap goggles on your face, and inside the goggles there are two TV screens, right, for your left eye, and then another for your right eye. And yeah, and it creates the illusion that you are in a different world because it's so close to your eye, and also the left eye sees an image slightly different from your right eye. So that's something called stereo disparity. But without getting too technical, it creates the illusion that you're somewhere else, using with these computer screens close to your face. So NASA, what they did was they would train their astronauts to, I think, to repair robots or remotely control robots, using virtual reality, right? So that was another like practical use of virtual reality. So it is for entertainment, but also for a very long time, a lot of industries have been using virtual reality for training purpose, for training and educational purposes.
Dude, that's intense. That's serious lore right there. So if I'm understanding you right, these two, I don't know if I was kind of the way I wrote it was like two pictures are spliced together, but really it's maybe more like two colors or two sides of the same are connected, and it creates, I guess, the sense of depth. If I'm not mistaken, I'm imagining really that little. Remember that thing as a kid? The what was it? The little like viewer, the view as a kid, almost like that, but like NASA's budget at that time.
No, that's exactly right. That actually works in the same principle. It's funny you mentioned that. So you're talking about that little red plastic thing, right?
Yes,
With the
exactly.
disc, and you would put the disc inside the little viewfinder, hold it up to your face, you'd click, and then you'd see like, oh, it's a bunny rabbit. Oh, that's
Right.
you know,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah.
A little surprise each frame. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Now you could try this, at home if you want. If you take your finger and put it in front of your face, right, with your eyes open. Now close, like maybe have it like maybe 5 inches away from your face. Now close your left eye and look at your finger with only your right eye, right? And you can see where the finger is positioned. Now close your right eye and open your left eye. Then kind of blink back and forth. So as you can see, it looks like your finger's shifting just a little bit. Now, if you put your finger a little further away, maybe let's say 12 inches, and then kind of flip back and forth between your left eye and right eye, you could see that there's more space in between the finger, right? Yeah, so that's exactly this. That's just that's that principle in action, right? So yeah, and that's exactly right. That's what they did to create that illusion for virtual reality. Um, so yeah, there it is. We cracked the code.
No, we cracked. Well, I mean, you're also giving us
They
that.
cracked the code.
No,
They
no, but it's that precursor for like if we went back, maybe that could be a that sort of like powerful like common podcast question. If we could go back before there was power, like how would you do this? Because what you just explained was like pretty cool from a conceptual standpoint. And again, here at ETM, we're a little bit obsessed with how did this lead to this, lead to this, lead to this. Like one day, we're probably going to put like a full on history of tech, starting with like electricity or like kinetic energy, because you're right. It's like this connected with this, like the two pick left and right, which also kind of makes you realize how much that's involved, not even in our biology, like left and right eye. And then the tech is sort of like left and right. And then we're talking immersive tech here. So the headset's huge. That's where that doorway of perception, I think that was a book, it exists in this weird VR way, that not with those undisclosed substances from that book. But nonetheless, I mean, that is kind of a cool thing about this tech is that it's kind of activating new worlds, right? And I think that's an awesome history. You're kind of helping us like understand where we were and then where are we going, right? Would you say that also encompass your volumetric technology sort of encounter, or was that later on? Because I know it was kind of older tech back then, so it wasn't all these complex things that we're seeing now. But I just wanted to make sure, like, had you seen anything else that was more volumetric per se, or would that be maybe along the lines of what you already said?
No, sure. That's a great question. So let's just take a quick second to define what we were talking about when we say volumetric. Yeah, so volumetric is the capture of a real life performance or real place and digitizing it in all its glory. So we're talking about capturing a three-dimensional space where you can go look at something, look behind it, look in front of it, all around it, kind of navigate around as if you're there. So just think about like maybe if you ever seen like on Google Maps, like the 3D version of Google Maps, not Street View, but the actual 3D map, being able to navigate around, or even the modern day video games, being able to free roam with a camera. So just think like you're watching a YouTube video, right? Like everybody does, but maybe it's of a of a guy, I don't know, driving a car in front of a dinosaur or something. Now let's pretend that what if you're able to go behind that car, like maybe you're using your mouse and keyboard and go behind the dinosaur and navigate around, as if you had like your own drone, right? Because with a drone, you could kind of pilot it around and move up and down, left and right, all around. Now, what if you can do that with video, right? I mean, you're your own Steven Spielberg. You're able to move around. So that's the idea with volumetric video, being able to record something, to record a scene in three dimensions. Now to answer your question, yeah, I mean the idea of volumetric video. I mean, I didn't get into it until maybe a couple of years ago, but my first encounter with something close to volumetric video, I'd say, would be at the arcade. Once again, apparently, I went to the mall a lot and I played. I
That's what you
wasted a lot
did
of
in
quarters.
our childhood days, right?
Yeah, I had to go to the go to the change machine, kind of flatten out the $5 bill and get my quarters, and then that was the real microtransaction, right? Oh,
Whoa!
please insert.
Oh, damn!
Yeah,
Oh,
so
wow! Okay, yeah, you are right.
yeah, insert quarter to continue, right? And of
Holy
course, these games
crap.
were designed for you to fail because they want you to pump in more quarters. That's why they were notorious.
Dude, and I think that was the original cloud. Pay-per-use billing, bro. Holy crap.
Yeah. So my first encounter with volumetric, quote unquote, or something that at least planted the seeds in my head, was none other than Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat, the fighting game, the controversial fighting game, ultra-violent fighting game. But it wasn't necessarily the spinal cord ripping or setting people on fire aspect of Mortal Kombat. It was the fact that the graphics were not like cartoon graphics. They were scans of real people. So the people in the ninja outfits, all the combatants, they were all recorded in front of a blue screen. That's right. So like, I mean, think about all the other games that existed at that time, like Street Fighter. It was another fighting game, but it was kind of cartoony, right? And they were characters drawn or created by an artist. But what made Mortal Kombat different was, it was the storyline and the controversy and the violence and all that stuff, and all that stuff's fun. But it was the fact that it was 3D or not 3D scanned. It was recorded in front of a blue screen, but they were real people, and you could tell they were real people, right? So they actually had real actors, real martial artists, and stunt people perform in front of a green screen or a blue screen. It was a blue screen at the time, and a camera would record their movements, and then you would, using your joystick and the buttons in the arcade machine, you would be able to make Johnny Cage punch or Sub-Zero do a special move, right? So. And I was like, oh, wow, this is like a real character on the screen that I'm controlling. And I don't know, in a way that kind of like planted the idea, maybe for a lot of people, planted the idea of, okay, maybe we can take it a step further. And instead of using these 3D avatars that were created by an artist, what if we can scan real people and put real people into a virtual world, right? And then it kind of adds that realism to it, right? Something that you can't necessarily get with a CG character. So,
Whoa, that's cool, man. I'm glad I actually went back there and asked about that because so I've asked people that a lot, and sometimes it's like, oh, I work here or there, but that's like pretty concrete. And I think most people that are, I don't know what year we'd want to cut it off, but probably like 90s or something, childhoods or before, would remember all of that. I'm pretty sure I remember virtual reality being shown in the mall, and like definitely like maybe mid late 90s. So that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and just for the folks that don't know about Mortal Kombat, actually, they've been coming out with Mortal Kombat 10, 11, 12. So believe it or not, that franchise still exists, and it's I got a lot of catching up to do. But at that time, Mortal Kombat was still 2D, so it was still like kind of a side-scrolling combat game. So it was not 3D yet, but I just want to clarify that. But yeah, you make a good point. There were a lot of like little arcade machines and little experiences at the arcade that were not just playing on a screen with a joystick. There were a lot of simulators, and there were a lot of I think Sega had a bunch of arcade machines, like virtual reality arcade machines, and those were pretty neat. They were pretty neat for like you pump in. Oh, I remember you had to put in maybe not just $1, but sometimes $2 worth of quarters.
Oh wow.
Those are the big ticket items.
No
so
way.
so like you're like, oh man, 8 quarters. Oh gosh, this has got to be good, right? so yeah, so that was the arcade experience, and then kind of going through the history of virtual reality up until today. In the early '90s, I think Nintendo had a product called the Virtual Boy. Yeah, it wasn't like today's virtual reality. It was like this red little plastic headset, and it would rest on this tabletop tripod, and you would kind of stick your head through it, and then you look at it, and it would use the same principles of stereo disparity, left eye and right eye, but it wasn't full color. It was like the colors. It was limited to only the colors black and red. I mean, if you look up some videos on YouTube, you can see some of the captures, some recordings of what it looked like if you were to look through the Virtual Boy. So it was not quite a success. It was almost $200, I think, and I think you could play like Mario Tennis on it, and a lot of people were uh, experiencing discomfort. But despite that, it was still a very it was a kind of a building block or a step in to the future, right? And a lot of people reference Virtual Boy as one of the first commercially available virtual headsets on the market. So it's one of those like little milestones in the timeline of virtual reality.
Whoa,
Virtual Boy,
man.
yeah,
Virtual
yeah,
Boy. I thought it was itself like an arcade. Okay, no, it's
yeah.
not. It's actually a headset. No kidding. I might be thinking
Oh
of
no,
Neo
yeah,
Geo
there
or
were a
something.
bunch of other like kind of virtual reality experiences in arcades. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I do know that like Disney, they had at Disney World, at the Disney World theme park, they had some virtual reality experiences as well, where you would look through a headset or wear a headset, and you could like fly on Aladdin's magic carpet, that type of thing. So yeah, so the concept of virtual reality, it's been around in different capacities. And then fast forward, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's awesome. Like, I like that you're kind of activating a timeline here. Let's definitely like that's a nice track to follow. So basically, we had these arcades that were kind of like prototypes or like pseudo, like the periscope thing, like pseudo motion tracking. And then you had the Virtual Boy, which I totally don't
Yeah,
think I
there was
knew about that. That's wild.
a
So now we're gonna go
yeah,
from
there was a
Virtual Boy
time
to what was next.
in Nintendo's history, or even just all kind of home consoles history in the early '90s, where they were just coming up with all sorts of peripherals. They had like all these laser zapper guns, and they had the power pads, and they had the power glove, U Force, virtual reality, Virtual Boy. So they were just trying everything and anything just to differentiate themselves, and come up with new ways for people to enjoy the games. So and Virtual Boy was among them. Now let's fast forward almost 2 decades to, I'm not sure what year it was exactly, but um, there was a guy called Palmer Luckey. He's the one who created the Oculus, the Oculus headset, and I believe it started as a Kickstarter project. And yeah, so he invented the Oculus, and that was kind of that ushered in the kind of the revival of virtual reality in the mainstream. And yeah, it was around 2016. It was really catching people's eyes. The idea of the Oculus Rift, and then soon many other companies were creating headsets, such as HTC. The HTC was making the HTC Vive. That was another headset. In that one, I think you actually had to set up these sensors around your room, because it was a different type of virtual reality where you were not just moving your head, you weren't just seated in your chair and moving your head around. You could actually free roam. It was they called it room scale virtual reality. So the idea was like you would have your living room. Maybe you're in the living room. You clear to the coffee table. Maybe make a 4 by 4 foot space, and then you would set up these sensors, and the sensors would track your movement. So if you're walking around like on this lava planet in virtual reality, you're also walking around in your living room. So that kind of added another dimension of realism to it, because you're kind of walking around. Maybe you're on this Martian landscape, but you're also walking around in your living room. So it's kind of added another. Yeah.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of the few that I'm aware of because I've used it, and just to add on to what you said, those sensors are infrared, so that's another cool piece of technology where I pretty much knew nothing about infrared other than the fact that it facilitates, as you said, this room scale movement, because it's kind of like it knows where your headset is and your controller, and it knows, like you said, how big the room is. You have to draw the room size like manually with a controller. There's sort of a setup process, Steam VR for those of us who have tried it. But yeah, just adding on to what you said, it's super interesting stuff.
Yeah. So like you said, it was not just the headset, but it's also the controllers. So if you were to look through your headset, you could see that you have hands, right? So as you squeeze the triggers on the controllers, you're also making a fist with your left and right hands, right? So it's kind of added another layer of realism to the virtual reality experience, because I think a few minutes ago you were talking about the senses and the human body, and how we're really tricking the body into thinking something. We're kind of hacking the mind, right? Just using different techniques, just like even even back in the 1950s, they knew it with that with that simulator where where the seat was shaking and they were spraying water in your face, and they knew that full immersion. Yes, it's visual, but it's also audio. What you hear, does it sound like something's far away? Does it sound like something's close behind you? And how does it feel? Right? It's kind of like even with video games, your controller shakes if there's an explosion, right? Just to add a little bit of realism. So there's also a lot of peripherals that are being added onto the virtual reality experience that people are experimenting with, and they're inventing new things all the time, like haptic feedback gloves. And when we say haptic feedback, we're talking about a vibrating in reaction to different things that you experience in virtual reality. So if let's say you get shot with a paintball in virtual reality, maybe you're wearing a vest and a physical vest in real life, and it shakes right in that spot where you got hit, right? So you're really simulating. You're simulating and stimulating all the different senses, not just the visual, the left eye and right eye, but also the audio and the feeling, and also being able to walk around. So it's funny. I mean, you may have seen like on YouTube or online, like some of the people getting so immersed that they're like forgetting where they are. Like they run into the coffee table and knock over their TV, or there is this one VR experience. It's called Richie's Plank Experience. Have you seen this one?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
So in this VR experience, you're on top of a building, right? And I guess as part of the setup is like you get like this plank, like a wooden plank, maybe like from a shelf or something you get at Home Depot, some wooden plank, and you would place it on your floor, right? And then in the virtual world, there would also be a plank. So you're walking almost like a pirate. You're walking on a plank, right? But in the VR world, you're actually like 50 or 70 stories up on top of a skyscraper in the middle of the city, right? And your task in this virtual reality experience is just to walk across that plank. Now, if you look up these YouTube videos, there are people that are just scared as heck. They're like, oh my god, I can't. They're like, they're like real like slowly like inching their way across this wooden plank, and they're crawling. And some of them are on the verge of crying, and then some people, yeah, no, I'm serious. Like it is remarkable. And the thing is, they're not acting. Like you would think, oh, okay, these are actors. They're just trying to be over dramatic, No, some people are just genuinely like frightened because they were so scared, they were so immersed, and the illusion was completed, right? That's virtual reality. Virtual reality was able. I mean, for this one, it was kind of a scary experience, but using the visual cues, and also when you're up there, you can hear the wind kind of blowing from through, um, from your left ear to right ear, so it feels like how you would feel if you were on top of a building with the wind and the birds, and then you're walking on a physical plank in the real world. So like you're trying to balance yourself because, well, your brain doesn't know any better. Your brain is taking all this input and saying, okay, well, my survival instincts tell me I should not fall off this plank or I will die, right? So it kind of goes back to that kind of primal kind of roots, right? It's kind of our instincts. And that's kind of right. So because the we're really creating illusion, tricking our body into thinking because we're not really on top of a roof. We're in our living room on a wooden plank in the safety of our living room on flat ground. But when you see these videos of these people, it's like they're afraid they're gonna plummet to their death, right? But in actuality, they're just like on their carpet, and there's no consequence for falling down. But and you can see kind of their friends in the background laughing or messing with them. It's pretty wild. So yeah, so that
I'm going to share some good ones on the show notes, but really quick, I want to kind of zoom out for a second and say, you're also bringing up the concept of media, right? Before we get, and I want to get back on that path to sort of like really VR's rich media. It's like rich dynamic media. So I want to kind of really quick just say we had television, black and white, then it's color, and then video, and like God only knows, like the first movies that came out that were violent, or I mean, War of the Worlds. Okay, we're in audio still. Let's zoom back even more. War of the Worlds created like public panic because people were like in the middle of the story. I should know that author's name. He's such a classic. This guy's reading the book, and people are like, "Oh my God, aliens are attacking!" And it's like, no, dude, he's reading a book on the radio. So imagine what video must have first caused, and then tag that back to what you were just saying about now we're walking across like a building, like something you're like in the Matrix now. So it's like we quickly glazed over like every form of media. I think did shock people in different ways. So I'm glad I just wanted to tie that together as far as our time.
Oh no, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is a different type of media that kind of stimulates and simulates all the different senses, multiple senses at once to complete that illusion. That's when you are so immersed in something, or you're kind of in the zone where you forget that you are actually in your living room. You are for a while you're convinced, even for a few seconds, that you're actually on top of a building or you're on this alien planet. Then that's a sign of a good virtual reality experience, a well-designed virtual reality experience.
Or like movies like where people are like, oh my gosh, I couldn't sleep, or something like that. Now we have this even deeper level where you were there. So I don't know what that says about people who with trauma and stuff. And it also makes you wonder, where's that line of what's real versus fantasy from the perspective of the mind's perception? Like, we're bringing up some crazy thoughts here. Like, how does perception work? And what is that? It's like, what is that walking the plank thing that just happened there? Why are people freaking out? And that's why I kind of brought up the media thing, is because this rich media is like giving us serious emotional experiences and reactions.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, that's not only unique to virtual reality. I mean, how many times have we seen like a horror movie and gotten scared when the monster jumps out, right? Or we are scared for the hero that they're in mortal danger, or or we cry when we find out, you know, the person's loyal dog died. You know, it's so many, there's so many layers to it that, and that's just media really tricking our brain, all right, because we really buy into the idea, we get caught up in the story, we are you know, it kind of pulls at our heartstrings, right? And that's part of the art of the film, right? Just like the filmmakers, they have their toolbox of ways to create an emotion, to invoke an emotion in us. Maybe it's dramatic music, or maybe it's a slow pan, right? The camera zooming in, right? They're or maybe it's, you know, it's the music, or the atmosphere, or the way it's the lighting of the scene can make it seem like a dramatic scene or a happy scene, or they have a toolbox of techniques they use to create an effect. Virtual reality also has their own set of tools in their toolbox to create suspense, to create drama, to create relaxation. We're talking about all these examples where people are terrified, but VR has also been used for therapy purposes, for meditation, guided meditation, right? So imagine that there's a virtual reality experience where you're in this lotus garden, and there's you know, a gentle waterfall in the background, and there's you know, these string instruments playing, and somebody's guiding you on how to breathe and relax. And so yeah, they're just like filmmakers have their tools to create an atmosphere. Virtual reality also has that power as well.
Well, and can I just throw in more tech to the tech that's already probably teched out enough? But and by the way, I'm just gonna have to point out we're gonna probably need to do a separate episode on just. I mean, we should definitely touch on this one, but like this future level of tech, because here's what I'm thinking about. I would love to have that entire discussion we just had around this EEG thing. Like soon enough, you're gonna have like okay, so the Apple Watch, right? It can already take your pulse and how many steps. So as I don't think it's quite there with EEG, right? Like that's a bit intense of like a brain scan. But like as you said, imagine now this meditation app connecting with your pulse, and like there's this whole sort of dance that could be going on with the tech in your body. And I mean, again, I don't want to go too deep in that rabbit hole, but what you're saying about how all that's available is only going to get better because the tech will literally know how you're freaking feeling based on these metrics, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that could be a whole other discussion, but yeah, it is another like, I guess, technique or tool, however you want to call it, that can be used to simulate a different sensation in the body, right?
So let's talk a little about that. Like you're talking about, like I always laugh, like what D are we on? D is in dimensions, right? Like we had 2D screens and like watch your cartoons and, you know, black and white TV to color to what are we up to? 8K or it's like good gosh. So now it's like okay, here's this rich media thing and VR and it's dynamic. So yeah, how does that fit in now with like kind of not joking, what D are we on? Because you know, haptics is that like 4D, 5D, and maybe to touch a little on how like really there's more dimensions emerging with the experience because it's not just your eyes and hearing. Now there's touch and like heat
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
cold and wind
That's
and right.
that's a great point. I mean, yeah, there's haptic feedback, so vibrations, touch. There, you know, I just saw the other day. There's this video where they have forced feedback gloves, right? So what that is that you put on these special gloves, and they have like some type of mechanics inside the gloves. And basically, if you in virtual reality, if you were to go like grab a cup in virtual reality, right, the 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 gloves will force feedback, or it will prevent you from closing your hand all the way, but it'll have you conform to the shape of a cup that you're holding. So it'll simulate that but you're not actually holding a cup in real life. But in virtual reality, it will feel like you're holding the cup because the gloves are putting up resistance as if you're holding a cup in your hand of a certain size. So there's that, and then I believe at CES one of the booths they were displaying some type of almost like smell-o-vision type of VR headset. It was kind of an add-on where you can smell like, oh, the embers of fire, or you can smell like wood or grass clippings. I'm not exactly sure how that works. They must have like maybe this. I don't know if it's pumping in chemicals into your nose, or is it yeah, but I know that there are different ways to fake that you are smelling something that you're not. I think if you touch certain parts of your tongue or your brain, I guess the tongue is more accessible than the brain at the moment. But like, you can kind of like almost like kind of acupuncture, like press certain parts of your mouth to create the illusion that something is salty or sweet, right? And yeah, so there's touch, there's smell, there's vision. You could walk around. Some of these headsets, you're not tethered to the computer. So that means you could kind of walk around. And what's great is that nowadays it's getting easier to set these up. One of the pain points, a lot of people were complaining about, okay, this I got to set up the lighthouses and the sensors, and I got to do this and that, manage the cable. Now Meta Quest by Meta, you can just strap it onto your face and you're ready to go. So that's a lot more convenient. But so yeah, so we have all the dimensions. We have touch, or we have all the senses: touch, taste. I'm gonna throw something out there. We have time and space. So space, because well, we can move around physically, right? And in the real world, you could kind of walk around your living room with your feet. And I will say time as well because of time dilation. Now, this is a real phenomenon, and it's not unique to just virtual reality. You know that old phrase, like, oh, time flies when you're having fun, right? And there have been many studies about this, and it's a phenomenon that happens when you're hyper focused on, like, maybe on a task, or you're playing a video game, and like you start playing a game, you're so immersed, and then before you know it, 5 hours passed and you didn't even realize it. It still feels like you're only playing for 15 minutes. Same thing happens with athletes when they're it's like the last few seconds of the game, and it's a crucial part of the game, time of the game, and sometimes people say that time feels like it's slowed down while they're doing that. When they're trying to hit that winning shot, right? So sometimes it feels like their brain kind of slows things down so because they're so hyper focused on something. Now, with virtual reality, I feel like there's something also there as well when people are inside the virtual headset, and this has happened to me. I didn't I remember putting this on. I was trying out this this one Star Wars game, and I was it was still daylight when I put it on. But then like when I finally came out and like returned to the real world, and this is at my old office, like everybody already left the office and it was already like 9 p.m. and everybody was gone and all the lights were off in the office. I was like, oh, no one bothered to tell me they were leaving. And like, yeah, I was there for like 4 hours, just immersed. And but in the game, it felt like I was only in there for 20 minutes. So like it was like an Interstellar, that movie Interstellar, where when you're on that planet and then time dilates, and 15 minutes on the planet is actually 15 years in on another planet. So yeah, again, it's really the another example of technology kind of messing with our brain, or kind of fooling our brain, but this time it's with time. So I would say also time as well. We were tracing it back to the old times, and then we were basically in the present already. So yeah, today, well, virtual reality is still alive in its own little niche. It's still being used for training purposes, for more industrial settings, right? So folks that need to do on the job training, perhaps they're in a dangerous profession where they're just, for example, they're handling hazardous materials. They want to be able to know how to navigate and handle those materials and get practice, basically get practice before they do it for real. Same thing with sometimes with emergency situations. I've seen virtual reality used for training flight attendants. You know how if you've taken an airplane, if there's ever a water landing, this is what happens, right? And then the inflatable slide goes out, right, and you slide down. It's one thing to look at the diagrams on the back of that little card on the back of the seat, but then it's another thing to experience it. So they've been using virtual simulations to train personnel so they understand what it's like to be in a stressful situation, so they can be familiar with what would happen with people panicking and how to keep things under control. So that's another very useful use of virtual reality for training purposes, and for gaming as well. Beat Saber. Beat Saber is a huge hit. I mean, go on Twitch right now. There is definitely somebody still streaming Beat Saber, and that's a rhythm-based game where you hit those blocks in coordination with the music, right? And it's a really fun game. I think it's probably the biggest virtual reality game, Beat Saber. And then of course the metaverse, all the talk about, hey, let's have our avatars occupying, whether it's the Meta's Horizons or VR chat. People have their CG 3D avatars, but now people are exploring the idea of, instead of having a virtual avatar, what if I have my real avatar, my real person? What if I have my 3D scanned version of myself in virtual reality, and instead of using the mouse and keyboard to navigate around, what if I strap on a headset and I walk around freely as if I'm there? So that's another use. And then in more recent news, and this is a rumor, and I feel like it's been a rumor every year for the past 5 years. Apple is allegedly releasing their own either virtual reality or augmented reality or mixed reality headset later this year. So that's another exciting development, because Apple, being the massive consumer juggernaut that it is, hey, maybe more people will be interested in VR if there's an Apple branded headset, right? So that's kind of where we are today. So it's VR still being used for training. It's still inside of like amusement parks. They're sometimes at the mall or some theme parks. They'll have virtual reality experiences. Quick. You suit up and then you experience it for 5 minutes. You shoot some stormtroopers, or you go to an alien planet, then you leave. And then niche gaming, like Beat Saber, and then also the VR chat or metaverse. And then of course Apple is coming out with their own headset. So that's kind of where we are today. Now the future. Oh my gosh, this is gonna have to be a whole new episode. But I will say a few things. I think virtual reality, the concept of virtual reality, will expand beyond what we see today as far as headsets and accessories. I think that's going to continuously evolve. The hardware will continue to get more powerful, just like computers always get more powerful. So I think that the graphics will become more realistic, because right now, if you look at the VR experiences, you could tell it's like a video game. You could tell it's not real. But I think as the hardware gets more powerful and the computing power gets better, you'll be able to look at things as if they're in 4K, right? Because that's what people are used to nowadays. They want to see. It's just the ultra crisp. You want to see every pore, every bead of sweat, that's running down someone's forehead or whatever, right? So I think it's going to get more realistic, but that's going to come in time as the hardware gets better, and it's going to become more lightweight. Right now, it is a bit cumbersome putting on the hardware and strapping it to your face, but I think the form factor will get a little bit smaller, and I think it's going to expand beyond wearing a headset. I think that the definition of virtual reality is gonna shift. It's no longer going to be now. Again, I don't want to argue semantics if it's considered augmented reality or mixed reality or extended reality, but I think it's going to evolve past strapping two computer screens to your eyeballs, and you're going to have more. And we're seeing this already with projection mapping, um, being able to cast digital images on your walls and on your floor to completely change the look of the environment. And then also the idea of virtual production. If you ever seen the behind the scenes of there's that TV series The Mandalorian on Disney, the way they shot their, and this could be a completely new podcast as well, a topic for podcast, another podcast. But they, instead of using a green screen, they would have these high definition LED walls, ceilings, and floors, and they would project different alien planets on these walls. And yeah, it basically it's like virtual reality but without a headset, and it's pretty amazing how realistic it is. A lot of those TV series that you see on Disney or on Netflix, they may not have been shot like on a real set or like a real mountaintop. It's possible that, and not even a green screen, they were probably just standing on in front of what would be the equivalent of a really big like television.
Did you say HD LED or did you just say HD? You did say LED. So like high definition LED. It's like kind of like when you're at events and you if you've ever like looked behind the stage, like it's like there's some crazy stuff going on there. There's like 95 TVs like taped together is what it looks like, but it's probably what you're saying because and again another episode, what are displays? Are you kidding me right now? I don't know anything about that, but that's cool. So it's like the the so essentially you don't even need CG, or you guess you kind of do, but you project it on the screen along with the actor in front of
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. So if you were to Google like LED wall or virtual production, you'll get a better sense of what we're talking about, right? So yeah. So like, have you ever seen like the behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or whatever, right? Like the actors are kind of acting in front of this green screen, and they're pretending there's like a monster behind them, and they're pretending that they're on top of a mountain, right? But in reality, they're in a production studio, and everything around them is green. Now, with virtual production, they are actually surrounded by these curved monitors all around them, and there's also projections on the floor. So it gives them a reference point. So it looks like they're on a mountaintop, or it looks like there is a dragon like behind them or whatever it is. And it creates another layer of immersion. Um, and that's without a headset, and it kind of gives them a better reference to where they are, and it's without a green screen, so they don't have to imagine, because they have a visual that they can use to guide their acting, right? And give a more convincing performance. We're going to see a lot more of that. We have been seeing a lot more of that. And again, we're really stretching the definition of virtual reality, but I think um, I think the definition is going to change and morph, and there's going to be so much overlap that yeah, it's not even going to matter that much, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, that's why I like that you threw down immersive technology, because I might even adjust the category for, because right now I have mixed reality, I think, on the site, but that makes so much more sense because, and even I would argue, because remember and okay, I know we're getting a little long here, but we might have to have a really quick honorable mention for 360 video. I'm not quite there yet, but I really want to point out that it's like VR is like cameras and sensors. Like, here's your headset, and here's an infrared sensor that you put on a light box like I did, or you could screw it on your wall, or like, they give you some brackets. Like, I think those light boxes are super useful, by the way. If anyone is willing to put in the effort of dealing with all that, they're basically like what is used for, lights or cameras, or, sort of like a tripod. Highly recommend it. But yeah, you got the infrared sensors, you got cameras. So really we're talking about cameras in a way. I mean, not just cameras, but cameras and sensors, and that interplay is what I would say immersive technology. So I really appreciate you throwing that word down. I think we can say you coined it, or I don't know about coined it, but made it popular in our little community here. But yeah,
I can't take
maybe,
credit for that one. I definitely
yeah,
stole it from somebody else. Who stole it from somebody else?
No, that's fine. I mean, point being, industry term that like I hadn't really heard too much.
Yeah, yeah, but for sure, it is a combination of cameras, hardware, and I will also say software because um, software, machine learning, AI plays a huge role in all these in the advancement of these technologies too. And that's going to have to be another topic for another week. Just
Well, I like that angle too because you know what? It kind of proves how everyone really gets in their head this will be like that or that will be like this, and so like even this whole branding game of like VR, XR, AR, it's like maybe a little bit of a farce because the tech's going to evolve for the experiences that people just adopt. And I'd love to really quick bring up 360 video, and I'll tee it off here because I had 360 video as a part of VR, and then Eric was, or a mixed reality rather, but then Eric was like, it's not really, that
well,
term's
I mean,
kind of gone. And I
it's
was like,
there.
why?
I mean,
He's
for
gonna
sure,
tell us.
it's
Mhm.
there, but and it still exists. It still exists. But I would just say it's not in the forefront as other technologies. Let's just say that.
But the point that I'm making is, and then you had some interesting stories, like it was considered, oh man, this is a really powerful medium, and it kind of just fizzled. So that's another reason why I brought up the camera thing was I'm just like, look at what's stuck, and maybe that's the main takeaway here is like what tech has stuck, like the cameras, the sensors, the whatever. And unfortunately 360 kind of got replaced, or it evolved because now it's like you could put cameras in a circle. And I don't know if you have any stories about funny contraptions you've seen, but I've definitely seen at Upload VR out here, they had an office briefly, but they had one of those circles, and it's like they put cameras literally in a circle, and maybe it'll be like five or 10 high and like rows of like a dozen or two. So like a crap ton of cameras. So I don't know if you have anything more to add on 360 video, but I just think it is interesting that there was sort of this medium that kind of went like the Betamax route. I don't know if that's the right analogy, but it was like, that medium didn't really stick. And it kind of, as you said, is part of this evolution of
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
the next
it
thing
was
is.
definitely kind of in an intermediary technology that wasn't going to stick around. I mean, it still lingers around a little bit, but it was definitely. I wouldn't say it was like a waste. It was definitely a stepping stone toward in the right direction, but it was not the end goal, or it wasn't like the end all be all. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like there are hardware, yeah, there's a lot of hardware involved with the physical hardware and the cameras set up, like you were saying at that Upload VR office. But then also think about it: the cameras and sensors. I mean, you probably have some right now in your pocket at the moment on your phone, right? Yeah. So a lot of people have access to cameras and sensors that can do a lot of amazing things. So a lot of people may not realize that they have a studio in their pocket for creating a lot of 3D content, and that maybe that could be another topic of how a lot of new apps are allowing for people to do photogrammetry and doing volumetric capture and putting it in the basically putting the technology in the hands of the creators, in the hands of creative people, in the hands of everyday people, and seeing like how people actually end up using it, right? Because this stuff isn't. I mean, a lot of this stuff is for the big tech companies, and it's for the big studios and for the big sports leagues, but we're also going to see it in the hands of the consumer, and they're gonna we're gonna see some virtual reality memes pretty soon on TikTok. That's what's gonna happen. That's just the natural evolution of things. We're gonna see funny remixes and memes and all sorts of things in 3D, in VR, in AR. Right? It's just a matter of time because when you put this technology in the hands of the people, really funny things can happen. So.
Dude, I love that, and I'm gonna throw in another little like honorable mention. I feel like I need to create another website, Forgotten Tech Mastery, because I always find myself collecting a list of all these weird techs that everyone forgot about, which is Gear VR, which is not VR at all per our discussion here. It's technically 360
Oh,
video, I
okay.
guess,
So
or
that was
uh, t-
when you would take like a Samsung phone and like you would kind of strap it to your face, right? With a headset. Yeah.
exactly. Like they even, only reason I'm bringing it up is I actually really like that. So it's like, damn it, why do I always like the stuff that everyone's like, no? Because to your point, I had a S7 at the time, a Samsung S7. So this is maybe like 2017. Like I brought this to a conference, and I was like making it almost like an amenity for our booth. Like, look at this cool random roller coaster. And I mean, dude, at the end of the event when everyone had a few drinks, holy crap, VR is magical. So I have some fond memories of like, I guess even doing my own little like integration of VR stuff. But it's like you said, you sit down, you strap it to your face. It's 2D, so I would recommend people sit down because you definitely could kind of get wobbly, like if you're standing up and you just like, it's like you're not supposed to be moving, right? So you at least, the screen moves, right? So I was just throwing that out there. I think that would technically be considered 360 video because you could look around, but there was no
Right,
movement.
exactly. You're pinned to one place, but you can still move your head left and right, up and down, but you can never like move. Yeah, you can't move forward. You can't like go behind that desk that's over on the left, right? You don't. You have limited movement. So, but it was kind of a step in a step forward, right? Because previous to that, you wouldn't be able to move at all, right? You were just watch the video play, and that was it. It was a more of a passive experience. With this, at least you had some agency. You were able to kind of move around and explore what's behind you or to the left or to the right of you. Um, so yeah, so
And by the way, there was a Jurassic Park, like you said, little 360 movie or whatever you want to call it. Like it's almost more than 360 because you could look up technically. But dude, there's a giant dinosaur that comes there. So like in a way, I would say it's like a baby Vive experience because for like you said, those average user that are like we see on the internet freaking out, like that is an insanely immersive experience. I think one takeaway I've had is like the key word here is immersive, and like immersive means more kind of emotionally engaging and
oh yeah,
visceral, I would
absolutely.
argue, or not kind of like
Yeah,
definitely,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, and even before like 360 video and before virtual reality, I mean, you have like IMAX theaters, you have OmniMax theaters, right, with the curved screens, right, and the surround sound, right. So if it sounds like is when you're sitting in the theater, it sounds like the dinosaur is behind you, or the jet plane is flying above you and to the left and to the right. So yeah, that is immersion, right? Just kind of um, fooling your brain into thinking that you're in the movie, that you're in this three-dimensional space because things are happening around you, not just in front, not just from speakers that are positioned pointing at you from the front of from the back of the theater, but there's speakers all around you. If the screen is gigantic, right? Maybe it feels like you're inside the movie because you kind of forget all the other stuff in the room kind of fades in the background, right? Like, and you forget that you're in the theater, until like you hear someone, uh, you know, open their bag of Doritos too loud, right? And people get mad, right? Because they're so in the moment, like you're breaking my immersion. Um, yeah. So absolutely. There's different degrees to which and different tools people use to create that illusion of immersion. Because like in the end of the day, we're tricking our brain into thinking that we're somewhere we're not, right? Or we're doing something we're not.
Right. And another quick throwback I was just thinking of, like, we went on all these crazy like the viewfinder thing and like the arcades. How about 3D like IMAX? They give you the glasses. Like that's almost like, big media, I guess if you will, meaning movie theaters and stuff. Their attempt at immersive. I mean, it's tough to get everyone in on it in an easy way. And I think the glasses, like, yeah, it's a little like maybe underwhelming, but I think it's actually pretty brilliant because like everyone gets chucked a pair of glasses and call it a day versus like think about everything we just talked about with going through setting up your VR headset and stuff to get that super deep experience. So I even like these more, I don't want to call them cheap, but just lighter tech, I guess. I guess that's still tech, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely immersive, and it's yeah, I guess it just depends on what the audience is going for, right? Like if you watch a movie, it's a passive experience. You're kind of along for the ride, like it's a theme park ride, like you're on a roller coaster. You're kind of sitting back and you're watching. But then if someone is more of a gamer and they want more interaction, they don't want necessarily a passive experience. They want to be able to be the main character. They want to be able to, fight the bad guy, right? So, and it's a little bit more active. And there's some time, and personally, sometimes there are days where I'm in the mood to play a game and I want to do things. And then there are other times where I'm like, well, you know what? I just feel like vegging out. I just feel like just laying back and just passively just watching something, kind of turn my brain off. So there's definitely situations, different situations and different personas, um, that, and there are different technologies that can cater to what the person's looking for. So, like, what level of immersion are you looking for? Do you want full interactivity? Do you want the light, medium, hardcore mode, or whatever it is? So
Dude, I
there's
love that.
different
That's
different
crazy.
degrees for
It's like
sure.
we're gonna have to make some models here, like Eric's like a chart of
Right.
immersion. Like where are you on
No,
your chart of immersion? Or maybe it could be like the hot sauce. Like how hot can you
yeah,
handle? How
exactly. It could be
immersed
like
can
hot
you
ones, right?
handle?
Yeah, I want that. The habanero ghost pepper. know,
Oh my! You want to be thrown in a haunted house, attacked by a guy with a chainsaw, kicked off a cliff? Like, there's some people that are
Well,
like, "Yep,
okay.
yep, more,
See,
more,
that's
more."
the
Like,
that's another good point. So that is no. I'm sorry. This is going to be a 7-hour podcast.
this is Joe Rogan,
No,
guys. You
okay.
didn't
So
know.
okay,
Sorry.
let's say someday in the future, right? Maybe it's 2023. Maybe it's 3033. Okay. Let's say that the graphics get so good in virtual reality that it's hyper realistic, right? Like, so indistinguishable from reality, right? So isn't that kind of like what if you ever been to like a haunted house, or been to like a dinner theater, right, where there's actors interacting with you, right, and they're kind of kind of role playing, or even doing some type of like live action role playing, right? Yeah, that
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like at Universal Studios or Disneyland or
right, yeah.
something.
So
Totally.
that's like the perfect like pixel to pixel like real life graphics, but there are actors playing these parts, right? And then you're not really in danger, but it's a simulation. But like, yeah, I mean, or is it?
Or
You
is
don't
it?
even know anymore, right? Yeah. So that in a way that is another version of immersive, or another example of immersive experience, right? So that's not, it doesn't necessarily even have to be digital, right? It could just be people kind of acting and playing out a role, and like you're kind of along for the ride. But you're maybe you're like a secret agent, and you're, because they have those type of experiences. They were really popular, or they were starting to pick up in 2019, and then early 2020. But then I think the pandemic hit. That kind of shut everything down, and people um, did not want to interact with other, or could not interact with other people. But yeah, so those type of I think, I forget what it's called. It's called like secret something. Like they would have like these pop-ups where there's a limited amount of people that could sign up. Then you could role play as like a secret agent, and then there would be actors, and I don't know how many hours it lasts, but like there'd be actors playing different parts, and like you have to get the secret files, and it's all like done in this like stage, or this area. I know they had, I think it's called hidden location or secret location. We'll add it in the show notes. Yeah. Oh, yes,
And I'm even
escape rooms.
thinking
Yes,
about
exactly.
escape rooms as you're talking about this. Like that could easily have, and I think I'm not sure the
Yeah,
exact details, but that
I've
could very
seen.
much
Oh my
have
god, I've
kind of what
seen
you're
some
talking
escape
about.
rooms like take it to the next
People
degree, where it's
interacting with
like,
you.
oh, not only are you in an escape room where you have to figure out like these codes and patterns. There's a zombie chained to the wall, and if you don't solve this puzzle in like 5 minutes, the chain that's tethering the zombie to the wall gets longer and longer, and then soon it's going to get too close to you, right? No, I'm serious.
It's like, dude, it turns into Saw. It's like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be a what? A like
They're like
haunting
children
entertainment
crying,
show,
like, "Ah,
not
mommy."
turn me into the Saw movie. But dude, there's actually some of those immersive, and I use this term loosely, where they sort of like lightly, mildly, maybe even beyond abuse the players, and that's super weird. But there's people that are like, that's what I mean, is like this whole medium is like wild. So we've covered a lot of ground. You got the like kid friendly stunts at Universal Studios, and you got the like beat you up haunted house for real, and then you've got like something in the
Right,
middle, which
yeah.
is like
Yeah, I
what
am.
most
I
normal
actually a
people
couple
probably
years
do.
ago, I went to Universal Studios, and I did one of those immersive experiences where like you are a spy and you have to save the world, and like you would go from one room to another, and like, okay, you're like in this scientist lab, and you have to like get the right ingredients to form this like chemical or whatever. Then you're in this. Now you're in an insane asylum, and you have to find the right key to unlock the vault that has another key to unlock the door. Then you have to gather the stones to put in the right place to activate this ancient like booby trap. And I was like, oh my! And there's and you're working as a team, and there's actors playing their parts, and these are like. Aspiring actors that are dressed that are wearing the costume. They're in character, and they're trying to help you along as well. As some of them are trying to, it's amazing. So yeah, that's like that's another level of like immersive. That goes beyond digital, but it's still considered immersive in my opinion, because you are simulating a reality, and you're kind of even just for like 10 or 15 minutes you're playing a different role. You're just using your whole body and all your function to play this playing this different reality. So yeah. So like I said, future virtual reality is going to go beyond just the headset. It's going to stimulate all the senses. How we get from point A to point Z, that's up to us. We're gonna figure it out, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. You're gonna have a hell of a time doing it. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, dude, I probably should probably take us home here. Was there anything
no,
else
I
that I
think
didn't
that
ask you that you
covers
wanted to
it.
share about?
I would no, I definitely there are a lot of other topics we can cover in the future, but yeah, virtual reality. Um, yeah, it's here. I think it's here. um, and yeah, yeah, for sure. And then as far as how to get in touch with me, yeah, you can catch me on Twitch every Tuesday for Tech Taco Tuesday. My handle there is El Pollo Diablo. That's with two L's. Well, I guess maybe you can put that in the notes so they can spell it right. Um, and you can find me on Twitter at Eric Azares, EricAzares. So just my name, and that's it.
Very cool, man. Well, thank you for jumping on, and full disclosure, Eric's been helping out with the site. You'll be seeing him more around more, and I've been helping him with his show. So and who knows, we're gonna have a play around. We're playing with mediums. I told Eric I wanted to do a lot of solo episodes, but this is freaking awesome, and this is kind of my bread and butter. Was always having awesome guests, and we covered serious ground here. So I feel like we're setting a good like standard without blowing too much, on our own horn here. But I really feel like I learned something, and that's kind of what I'm enjoying about what we're doing. Is like the show's almost for us as much as for others, because like we're learning, and as we learn we share. So dude, thank you for coming on. So much more to cover. We're definitely going to do this again, and I think we have some great direction. Like it's cool how conversations almost direct you in their own way. But yeah, man, thank you again.
Thanks for having me, and I'll see everybody in the metaverse.
See you in the future.
All right.